record first. Good morning, colleagues. Welcome to this dissemination workshop. We are taking this opportunity to welcome you. Actually, the program is here. Maybe, Faith, you'll be scrolling down a little bit. First of all, my name is Martin Oleche, a researcher from the now Department of Economics here at the University of Nairobi. I'll be moderating this process here. And the program is here between 10 and 10:15. We're supposed to be logging in. And 10:15 to 10:30, we are supposed to be having the opening remarks. Will be done by Professor Anthony Wambugu, who is now the chair of the Department of Economics, Population and Development Studies. We'll also have Professor Murray also making remarks. Now, between 10:30 and 11:10, we will now have the presentation of the highlights of the report, Fiscal Incidence, Inequality and Poverty in Kenya, a commitment to equity assessment. And the presentation will be done by Dr. Moses Murithi, who is also a researcher here in the Department of Economics. Then between 11:10 to 11:40, we'll be having questions and answer session. And then finally, between 11:40 to 11:50, we'll have vote of thanks to be delivered by Paul Samoei from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Now, because we do not want to waste time, Faith, just scroll up a bit. We don't want to waste time because I know most of us are busy with other functions elsewhere. So at this particular point, I'm going to welcome Professor Anthony. Professor Anthony, I think you are around here. Yeah, I saw you here. You are here already. To make the opening remarks, and then thereafter we'll be having Professor Murray making the remarks. Professor Anthony, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martin Oleche, for the introduction. Distinguished guests, I would like to invite to welcome you to this workshop this morning. When you look at official documents by government, when you look at research output, it is clear that poverty and inequality remain major problems that require solutions. A week ago, we mapped the trends and diagnostics of inequality in Kenya. And one of the tools that is available to tackle these problems is fiscal policy. And today's workshop focuses on fiscal policy and how it can be used to deal with these two problems, poverty and inequality, and using a novel methodology, the CEQ assessment. And therefore, without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Murray Raybrad, the director of the Arua Africa Center of Excellence in Inequality Research, under which this work has been done with a grant from the AFD. And the University of Nairobi is part of the Center of Excellence in Inequality Research. And therefore, welcome, Professor, to make your remarks. And then Dr. Oreche will proceed with the rest of the program. Welcome, everybody, and feel at home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Mwambugu, and thank you to the moderator. And it's such a privilege to be with you this morning. It's a real celebration. The African Center of Excellence for Inequality Research, as Professor Mwambugu was saying, is one of the ACEIR centers of excellence. Our center is particularly responsible for bringing the analysis of African poverty and inequality into the broader ACEIR network. And we have 3 very strong research nodes that have taken on the task of building the African Center of Excellence for Inequality Research. This one in Nairobi at the university, and one at the University of Cape Town, and one at the University of Ghana, Legon. And this has been a triumphant 2 weeks, as Professor Mwambugu was saying, for the Kenyan node of ACEIR. We released the Kenyan diagnostic inequality diagnostic with the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics 10 days ago or so. And then today is the day in which the team releases and presents and releases its report on fiscal incidence analysis using the CQ framework. Both of these exercises, the diagnostic, which profiles and gathers the data in a country context in Kenya a few weeks ago, but also has been done in South Africa and in Ghana, consolidates the data so that we understand what the picture is, and we describe the data, and we see if we can make it available to the research community within those countries, but also across the continent, so that we can facilitate the engagement of researchers with these key issues. And that has worked extremely well. The exercise that in which the results are being presented to us today pushes on from that into the research, into the policy terrain. What can research actually say to start moving towards giving government information that's extremely useful for fighting poverty and inequality? It's a specific methodology that looks at social expenditures and looks at taxes across the distribution and can model some simulations. And it too has been done in each of the 3 contexts, the CEQ exercises. In fact, the Commitment to Equity Institute is a huge international institute, and these studies have been done in a number of African countries and in a number of international countries. But the way they've been done hasn't necessarily built the capacity, the indigenous capacity, and left it in place so that the CQ methodology and frameworks and the data that are gathered, which come from the National Treasury and from the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics, are there as a resource, are mainstreamed, if you like, in the assessment of policy with the research strength, the indigenous research strength. And so the Kenyan team, which is very strong anyway, we've always had the capacity to do this, but we needed a structural framework within which to actually own these type of assessments. And so this morning is a celebration of that, because it's not just that another CEQ assessment has been produced on Kenya or as in South Africa or in Ghana. It's the way it's been produced and what's left behind in terms of the research strength to back better policy making and policy assessment. And so we're extremely proud of this. We know our role as researchers in the policy process. We don't make policy, but we can do so much more than we have done historically as a contribution into that process. And these CEQ exercises were explicitly framed to do that. It's not beyond our bounds. We should own our own policy processes. It's not really right that the World Bank or any other multilateral agency conducts the policy exercises for our countries without us being fully part of it. And in some senses, we can do these things and we want to do them. And today is a celebration of that. I'm sure you'll see how useful the methodology is. And I'm sure you will agree with me that it's a really wonderful moment to know that this was produced by this amazing Kenyan team, very strong Kenyan team, and in close collaboration with the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics, but also the Ministry of Finance. And it's something to celebrate because it's there as capacity, and we can build on it. And I thank you. I'm very, from ACEIR's point of view, I couldn't be prouder, and I'm sure you will be proud as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Murray, for such very good insights about the paper and even for connecting it to the inequality diagnostics paper that was actually launched about 2 weeks ago. Now we are going to the main thrust of this program, and that one is the presentation of the paper, and the paper is actually going to be presented by Dr. Moses Murithi. Actually, after the presentation, we can also be able to download the paper from the school website. I think it will be there at the end of the presentation. So at this particular time, let me take the opportunity to invite Dr. Moses Murithi, who is a researcher and a colleague here in the Department of Economics, to give the key highlights on the fiscal incidence, inequality, and poverty in Kenya. We have actually heard about the summaries that have been given by the opening remarks. And so, Dr. Moses, kindly proceed to present. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Martin. Yeah, so I thank you again, and I say good morning to the team, to the participants. So let me load the presentation. What's happening here? So Martin, is it visible from your side?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah, go to the first page. Yeah. Yes, okay. I think that's okay. It's now visible.
Okay.
It's visible actually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Martin, again. Yeah, so I want to take this opportunity to take you through the key findings of our paper on the physical incidence, inequality, and poverty in Kenya, a CEQ assessment. As mentioned, this is a follow-up on what we did like 2 weeks, 1.5 weeks ago, in terms of launching the diagnostic, the inequality trends and diagnostics. So implying that we are...
Yeah, Joseph, congratulations. We'd like to invite you to first round interview for the IT support supervisor position.
It's somebody talking there. Yeah, so then I just want to say that this is actually a kind of a follow-up on what we did in the areas of our work on inequality trends are diagnosed in Kenya. So it's more or less like trying to give evidence in terms of what we found there, so that we can run with the results and use the results to come up with some kind of policy. So it's more or less like giving some kind of solution to some of the questions that we ask in our diagnostic trend. Yeah, so as notable, the research team comprises of members from KNBS, University of Nairobi, and we had a very strong heart from Stephen Young from Commitment to Equity Institute. Yeah, so then what was the motivation for this work? Yeah, it's clear that the key functions of any government is to redistribute resources, and more so to the disadvantaged members of the society. Of course, in order to achieve this, government normally generates resources mainly from taxes. And for the redistribution, we know that this is done through the government expenditure, which can either be in terms of government purchases, transfers, and subsidies. So it is thus critical to understand who benefits when the government spends money and who actually loses when the government taxes. Of course, in the literature, this is what we call a benefit incidence analysis. One mechanism of understanding this is actually to estimate how physical measures affect either poverty or poverty and inequality, or both in a country. Of course, there are several methodologies which ranges from regression methods that we can achieve this. The key area of newness that is brought by this work is the novelty of how is the novelty of using the paper to demonstrate how distribution consequences of tax system transfers and government spending is in Kenya. Yeah, so unlike the earlier papers which have used regression analysis, this paper this paper has used what we call the CQ, or Commitment to Equity, which is quite a new methodology that tends not to more or less like predict, but use the actual data to see how the situation is on the ground once you have some existing household survey done, which of course is later on, as we are going to see, is combined with available say government data to come up with the correlation for that time period in terms of how inequality and inequality and poverty can be affected by physical policies. So what you know about this is that this method actually assesses the distributive effect of as many taxes and expenditure items that the country has. So the approach compares and assesses standard indicators of inequalities for categories of various income. And this has been shown very clearly in the paper. So then the CQ approach seek to answer some of these two key questions, which we have concentrated on. One is, how does aspect of taxation and social spending affect the inequality and poverty, of course, in Kenya? And number two, how does specific individual line items affect inequality and the poverty? Yeah, to achieve this, we have used a national representative household survey that is KBIS of 2015-2016, which is actually the current data, that is very broad in terms of a household survey. And we have supplemented this one by administrative data for the same period, of course, from various government departments. So in achieving this again, we are saying that we have collected many taxes and the social expenditures on health, education, cash transfer or near cash transfers, which, as we have indicated, have been collected from various government departments and ministries. So, having said that, our main aim was to show or to give to demonstrate the kind of outputs or the kind of findings that we got when we applied this CEQ method in order to give some policy directions. So in terms of the key findings, we have 4 areas that we have put our emphasis on, as also indicated and very well put in the paper. Number 1 is we have looked at the overall impact of taxes and social expenditures on poverty and inequality. We have also tried to measure or to determine who are the net payers as to beneficiaries of taxes and social expenditure by deciles. And we have also demonstrated the fiscal incidence through concentration curves and marginal effects. And finally, out of this, we have tried to come up with some policy simulations as a result of discussions with people from the ministries and in areas that we thought could have some impact in terms of affecting, say, both inequality and poverty. So turning to overall impact of taxes and social expenditure on poverty, we have gone through the process of the CEQ framework by coming from the what we call by using key market incomes. What this one means that when we move from, for example, from market income plus pension all the way to final income, we are applying various physical policies through here. So which means that, for example, when you look at net market income, this in the framework is defined as the market income plus pensions and direct taxes. So which implies that the physical issue there are the pensions and the direct taxes. For the gross income, again, we see pension and direct transfers as key physical issue there to consider. And for the disposable income, we are faced with direct transfers and indirect taxes as a physical dimension to consider there. And to arrive at the consumable income, then we have the indirect taxes and the subsidies in there. And for the final income, we include education spending, education and health spending, of course, and the co-payments, which actually now that's go to co-payment, simply goes to the households at some extent. Yeah, so those are the 5 areas of income concept that we have utilized in this study. So going through the inequality and going to the results, what we notice is that inequality, which was assessed through Gini coefficient, and the poverty, which was assessed through headcount and poverty gap, gave us the following results. One thing to note is that Gini coefficient dropped slowly from the highest level of market income to consumable income. While poverty head ratio count increased through this incomes measure. Poverty gap also increased through the income measures up to, especially up to the consumable income. So what does this one tell us? This tells us that physical policy has to some extent reduced the inequality, while at the same time it has to some extent in Kenya a scenario increased poverty by some margins. So of course that was shown through, we have some numbers which demonstrate this. Yeah, so looking through the Gini coefficient, which actually measures our inequality, we note that up to final coefficient of 0.45, 0.54, and moving to final income, our Gini coefficient falls to 0.65 there, 0.35. So implying that poverty to some extent, inequality to some extent has dropped. For the poverty head count and the poverty gap, we find the same. We find the reverse, where we are seeing we are seeing that there has been an increase in poverty head count from market income to consumable income, where we have a 0.31 dropping to, increasing to, there's an increase to 0.36, so implying that headcount has increased, poverty headcount has increased. The same also applies to the gap. The poverty gap has also increased from 0.095 to 0.009, which implies that our physical options, physical policy options that we adopt affects poverty negatively to some extent. Of course, what you need to note here is that we have not done the final income for the head count and also for the gap, which implies that as we move on, we demonstrate that a final income which actually has a policy option of health expenditure and the education expenditure have some extent reduced the poverty, but up to the consumable income, where we don't consider spending in education, spending in health, we find that the physical options adopted there affects our poverty negatively. So yeah, so we have some comparative analysis here to make from countries that have used the CEQ. And for one, we want to show that the inequality in Kenya has decreased more than most of our neighbors like Uganda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. So with a Gini coefficient dropping by minus 20.8, it appears our physical options are doing really well, are doing quite well compared to most of the selected countries that have actually used the CEQ. Yeah, so in terms of poverty head count again, a bit of comparative analysis also. We note that some countries like Uruguay and Argentina, the poverty is going down by a very huge margin due to physical options implementation. But for our Kenya scenario, you can see that we're not doing very well because we are seeing our poverty has increased by some 17.9% due to the adoption of these physical policy options up to what we are seeing, up to from the market income plus pension to consumable income. So note here again here that all these countries are comparable because they have all used a market income plus pension up to a consumable income level. So poverty is still not going down using our 2015-2016 data set. Yeah, so moving on, we want them to answer the second question, which was who pays and who benefits from taxes and social expenditure by DSALs. So what we note, as we are going to show in the following figure, is that people in the first 6 deciles are net beneficiaries of transfers and social spending. By transfer here, we are talking of cash transfers. We are also talking of other net transfer like education and health. So we find that the first 6 deciles, or where the sampling, I mean from the first 6 deciles, as we are going to demonstrate, benefits from transfers, that is direct transfers and social spending. We also know that those in the richer 5 deciles are what we call net taxpayers. And in conclusion there we say that individually or jointly taxation and social spending in Kenya are progressive in terms of in absolute terms, so that they are achieving what they are expected. So this is the figure that shows when you look at the net health transfer, everybody is benefiting to some extent. The blue one, when it is above our zero line, then we are saying that's a benefit. When it is below, then we are saying it's more or less like a payment or like a burden to whichever decile we are referring to. So when you look to net education, you find that also up to the 6th decile, of course, everybody is benefiting, and this is like a neutral kind of policy, because even those we consider to be in the rich category are also benefiting. But when you look at all indirect taxes and direct taxes, we find that they form mainly like indirect taxes actually is for like is up to is for everybody, and that was expected. There's a payment to that to everybody, poor and the rich, because of the consumption of goods. But when you look at the direct taxes, we find that they are mainly from the 5th decile or all the way. But what we look when we see at all direct tax, all direct taxes are mainly for the rich. So to some extent, then we say that as we have concluded here, is that this policy are more or less achieving some kind of our expectation, because we expect that taxation mainly would really to be progressive. The rich should really be paying more to some extent, while social spending is very neutral, meaning that we are not being segregated, we are not being what do you call it's achieving its objective, that everybody is benefiting from health and education spending. So the other result relates to the concentration, the rise and concentration curve. So we are asking ourselves where are taxes, transfer, and the other and the government spending, where is it more concentrated? So for us to achieve a good discussion on this, we need to compare what we call the Lorentz curve. Of course, you know Lorentz curve it's actually for the Lorentz curve for the CEQ, disposable income. We compare that with our, or maybe we compare the gene. The Lorentz curve also is more or less like talking about the gene. We want to compare the gene coefficient of our CEQ disposable income with other represented concentration curves, that is, which shows where the incidence is more. We want to look at the various taxes, transfer, government spending, etc. So when we compare the positions of the concentration curve, relative to either equality line or what we are calling the lens curve to make conclusion on the distribution. So when we find that our concentration curve is above equality line, and then we say the policy option there, the fiscal policy option there is poor, which means that we have a negative coefficient for that concentration curve. When we have a concentration curve line that is below our Lorentz curve, it implies that the rich are the net undertaker. So with that bit of understanding, then we want to move to those concentration curves so that we can tell whether our policy options are as expected, are they consistent with our expectation, or are they contrary to our expectation? So when we look at the retirement contribution, the insurance contribution, and the income taxes, we find that all of them are actually what you might call compromised. They are consistent with our expectation. Why do we say this? We find that all of them lies below our Lorentz curve. So which implies that retirement contribution, insurance contribution, and income taxes are concentrated among the people that among the people that we expect.
David, mute kindly.
Okay. So when we come to VAT and import duties, we have does it meet our expectation? So we say yes for VAT and also for import duties in terms of direct effect. Yeah. So, but for the indirect effect of import, we find that it has not been our expectation, because perhaps you would have expected that this would fall more. We expect that the majority of people who are doing a lot of importation actually should be, maybe could be the rich. I think it is an area that perhaps we need a more debate in terms of our findings. So it's appear like it's really contrary to expectation. So when we come to transfer, here we have no issue, because we are saying that the transfers are all above our 45-degree line. Implying that all of them meets our expectation, that they are correctly targeted because they are pro-poor. Yeah, so in that case, we are doing very well there. Of course, one would say, okay, what about if we, is it not very close to the 45-degree line? But the most important thing here is to say that at least we are meeting expectation. They are pro-poor as they are when it comes to our findings. So when it comes to excise tax, consideration is actually as per expectation. And this because we expect that petroleum excise duty, diesel excise duty, and all such should mainly fall among the rich, or maybe among the well-off. That's where we would expect most of the burden to be. So when you look at the kerosene, that is not any contradiction, because we expect that we see that it's fall again. It's above our Lorentz curve, the black line, and of course below our 45-degree line, which simply implies that it's within our expectation, because the kerosene excise will more or less fall among the what you might call the poor to some extent. So it's not any unexpected when we got that result. So what about government education spending? So here we classified, or we categorized our education spending into several areas. We have what we call public primary school. We have public primary school, public post-primary, public secondary school, public college, and public secondary school. So what we are seeing here also is more or less like meet our expectation because we find that apart from the public, apart from the not the public, apart from the public college, which had to lie within our CQ Lorentz curve, meaning that it's more or less like very neutral to some extent. Can't say that is for the leash as such. It's more or less neutral to some extent. So many more people who are not well off are benefiting from this public spending. But when you look at the university education, which is actually shown by the public post-secondary government spending, we find that it's mainly it takes a turn on like the ones who are benefiting more the rich, but looking at public primary and all that. So it's as per expectation, because we expect that most of the public primary are mainly for it's like more or less like a pro-poor. Actually, it's a pro-poor because they all lie above a 45 degree line. Yeah, so those were I think those results were key in terms of showing how our government spending varies in terms of who really benefits more. Yeah, so moving on, we want to look at what we call the marginal effect. Marginal effect from these physical options. So in looking at this, we say that marginal effects attempt to answer the question of whether inequality would be higher, the same, or lower with a physical intervention. So we are saying in this way, we are looking at if we bring in taxes, how if we remove taxes, how is it going to, and maybe add it back, how is it going to affect the inequality? The inequality and the poverty. So you look at that marginal effect, and what we came out with as our result, we found that looking at the effect of the direct taxes, it was noted that direct taxes actually reduced inequality by around 4.1% point. While at the same time, it increased poverty by 1.4%. So indirect taxes, on the other hand, reduced inequality by 0.8% point, while it increases poverty by 5.1% point. On the other hand, all indirect taxes, so noting that all indirect taxes, all direct taxes, excluding contributory pension, reduces inequality and poverty by 0.4% and 0.7% respectively. All direct taxes. So for the health, we know that net health transfers reduces inequality and poverty by 0.9% and 3% respectively. So which means that health is as expected. It reduces inequality and it also reduces poverty by quite a good margin. The same also applies to net education. The marginal effect for this is that it reduces inequality and poverty by 3%. Can see the impact of education, quite huge. And it also reduces poverty by 11%. So which is quite something that is very positive as from the data. So finally is to mention on the policy simulation. So policy simulation. So by policy simulation, we want to ask ourselves what could happen to both inequality and poverty if we change a policy variable, a certain policy variable with some margin or with some agreeable agreeable targets, agreeable amount or levels. What would happen? So when we did our policy simulation, before then, what we did, we didn't really kind of get these policy policy variables and the levels that we needed to apply from our discussion, but we had to do some kind of a consultation with senior policymakers who are drawn from the Ministry of Planning, who are also drawn from Commission of Revenue Allocation, and also Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So our discussion, through our discussion, we agreed that we can come up with like four key policy simulation options. And these were key at that particular time when we were doing this, because this is the time of COVID. So it was like giving us some areas which we thought, or which were thought by the policymakers could have an impact at that time when we had this COVID. So we thought of cash transfers. So we had the cash transfer, three areas of cash, we had like 4 areas of cash transfer. That is hunger safety net program, orphans and the vulnerable children program, older persons cash transfer, that is OPTC, and the persons with severe disability. So the first, option was to think of increasing that cash transfer by 50% and see what was to happen to inequality that time, 2015, 2016 period, what could have happened, given that the kind of data we had, so that we could have some guidance in terms of if we are to adopt this as policy, how is it going to, fiscal policy, how is it going to affect inequality and poverty. So the other one was to increase all cash transfers by 100%. And this was kind of a discussion that came out of our consultation with the government policymakers. The other one was to increase coverage of OPTC and to include everyone except those who receive social insurance pension. So this a standalone. So we are not going to have. It's a mutual exclusive from the other two. Then the fourth one was to do a mix of these options. Increase all cash transfers by 50%, and increase coverage of OPTC, that is old person cash transfer, to include everyone except those who receive social insurance pension. By everyone, we are talking about anybody who was above age 60, but who except those who are receiving social insurance pensioners. So what were the results? Yeah, so the first result was when we did 1 and 2, that is option 1 and 2, increasing the cash transfer, but not increasing the coverage, we didn't have any impact on the consultation. So the poverty continued to be the same. Yeah, so meaning they had no impact at all on the inequality, on the poverty issue. 3 and 4. When we adopted policy option 3 and 4, where we increased the OPTC to include everyone those receiving increased coverage. I mean, increasing coverage. Increasing coverage, that is the number. We increase the number of people who are receiving that kind of benefit transfer. And also we found that 3 and 4 were found to lower the poverty concentration or the concentration coefficient for these poverty issues. So 3 and 4 implied that they had a greater impact on poverty. And they specifically 3 led to 2% reduction in poverty headcount and a 0.8% reduction in poverty gap, the 2 measures that we adopted for poverty. Specifically also, option 4 led to a 3.2% reduction in poverty headcount and a 1.3% reduction in poverty gap. Yeah, so implying that option 4 had a bigger impact compared to option 3. But notable is that all the suggested options had very minimal reduction on inequality. On inequality. So the major impact was actually on poverty. So then the issue here is expanding coverage and amount of cash transfer has a more tangible effect on reduction of poverty, of course, with a slight improvement in inequality. That was what we then with for that result. So then, in conclusion, what did we find? We noted that the combined impact of government taxes and social expenditures reduces inequality, but increases poverty. That was a major finding. But we don't forget that when we went up to the final income concept, there was a change in the areas of poverty, which actually reduced slightly when we applied the spending, the education spending and health spending. So we also noted in conclusion that Kenya fiscal policy can be redesigned to fight inequality and poverty. And also that redistribution is only one of many criteria that matter when making public policy. We know that there are other areas of concern like efficiency, and finally, we need to weigh the redistributive policies with other goals before deciding which tax or expenditure is desirable. I want to stop at that, and thank you for your time, Asante. Back to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moses, for such a very good presentation. You have highlighted all the findings and the methodology very well. Now we have come to a very important session of question and answer. And I'll be checking on those who have raised their hands to ask the questions. We'll take a couple of questions, and then the response will come from the team, and then pick some other couple of questions again. So I'm now checking. Okay, you can also access the paper. Actually, look at the chart. There's a link. There's a link there where you can actually get the paper there. If you look at the chart, you will see the link there, so you can download it, even as you prepare for the questions. So questions, I'm just checking on those who have raised their hands. Questions or comments? Oh yes, Professor Murray, I can see your hands up. Kindly take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really just a comment while people are thinking about the many questions I'm sure they have based on this very strong work. It was just a comment to say that this is a platform then, this tool that's been put in place. We're seeing some preliminary results that evaluate contemporary policy Kenya. And you can see how nicely honed it is to the actual instruments that are being used in the budget right now. I think that's evident. But it can also be used then to simulate other policies. So I just wanted to make that that comment. And indeed, it has been used. You know, obviously we're very fortunate to have Njaguna Ndungu here on the call. And for example, in the COVID policy response discussion last year, this tool was also used to simulate some possible responses to COVID in an initiative coordinated by the AERC. And so that's worth noting. It's, you know, right now, this report provides a very nice profile of the actual policy matrix, if you like, as it is right now. And then a second point, I wanted to note that in my opening comments, I was mentioning that these CEQ exercises have been done all over the world and all over the continent, and including that COVID scenario with the CEQ Institute. What I was remiss in not doing was acknowledging their full support for building this local capacity and their full participation in this process here. The particular representative of the CEQ on this exercise was Professor Stephen Younger from Cornell, who is very well known to many of us African researchers as somebody who himself is extremely committed, both extremely excellent, but extremely committed to this capacity building and strengthening of indigenous capacity. And so we are grateful to the CEQ. They embarked with us on this exercise across all 3 ACEIR nodes with full support. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Moderator.
Thank you very much, Professor, for such very good comments, overemphasizing how the CEQ is very important and can be used in simulation of other policies. Yes, so let's now go to Professor Njuguna. Kindly take the floor.
Thank you very much, Martin, and thank you, Murray. And I think, let me make 3 points. First is that I think Jaramano Mwabu will tell you about our current works in AERC, that we have revisited growth, poverty, inequality, and we have added the dimension of redistribution. And so it means that it is going to marry very well with this kind of work that you're doing, that you can actually come up, that is, redistribution should be seen as a strategy that works where markets fail. Because essentially we assume that redistribution can work through the market. But we have realized that actually over the years, if the institutions are weak, then that will not work. Then we can actually effect some mechanism for redistribution. And I think what Murray also said is that we have had some studies for 5 countries in terms of using data from mobile phone to try and see what exactly has happened to poverty and even household poverty levels. And our conclusion was that the COVID-19 period has actually reversed the gains of poverty and inequality that we had, that most of the African countries had covered for the last 20 years. So that is very, very worrying. And that can be actually, then we can come to this paper and say, what kind of contribution can we make? One, it is because we can actually see whether the taxes themselves are redistributed. And Kinyanjui and I come a long way, similarly to Germano. I'm very positive about how we can make taxes redistributive, but unfortunately, we don't have people who listen to that kind of story. And we want to come up with a very strong case that we can actually make taxes redistributive. At the end of the scale, we can actually reflect ourselves in terms of market failure or institutional failure problems by instituting very well governed targeted social protection program. I'm one of those people who have shouted all over the world to show how, because of the digital space in Kenya, managed to come up with targeted targeted social protection programs that have worked very efficiently in terms of even the data that is coming up, even the presentation that is being made. But however, well, targeted social protection programs are important, but they can also be abused. So that it's essentially, we can also look at it from the other side of the work, effort and all that. So essentially it's something that we really need to look at. But I think my final point is that if we are able to collect data at the frontier, that is, focus data in terms of what has really happened, especially I think there is keeper data on what has happened to the household level, and use this framework, we can actually talk about the present, the currency of the effects, because right now, the 2016, 2015, 2017 data does not actually include what happened to the should I say, reduction in taxes, or even some social targeted protection programs that were initiated during lockdowns. Lockdowns had the effect of reducing incomes and all that. And then we could be able to work, if we could be able to use this platform, this analytical platform, it will be very important for even our future studies and even cutting across other countries. So I'm very encouraged by this. And so it means that it goes back to you, Martin, and the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. We are dependent on that in terms of data. In fact, we are also looking at data in totality, and Murray is also in our project, looking at data policy and data governance. Because essentially, if we don't supply researchers with those tools, then we cannot get up-to-date policies or even revise the policies the way we anticipate. But we also have to look at that data in terms of how it can be protected and be managed very well. So I'm very encouraged by this direction of the studies. And so it means that we'll get to a point where we can actually talk about policy propositions, which are current, not relying very much on historical data and making an assumption that the structure of the economy has not changed, but one that is going to exactly show us that we can collect this data using the mobile phone and then correct and even come up with project propositions. How do we deal with our taxes in terms of redistribution? I think Germano will be telling you about our findings in our growth, poverty, inequality, and redistribution in Africa. Some of the critical papers that were presented like 2 weeks ago in the International Economic Association. And the proposition and the new strategy is actually to talk about pro-growth poverty reduction strategy. I think the pro-poor growth strategy did not work and may not work given the way the circumstances are and given the initial conditions on poverty and also given the shocks that are buffeting so many households from day to day. So we are going to maybe recruit that with this kind of studies to see where we are, and we can mount some interesting future works to support this policy direction. Thank you very much for this, and thank you very much for being invited to this meeting.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your comments. I think I will take another comment from Dee, and then later on, Katunga, then we can have maybe some reaction from the team, because so far we have comments. Dee, I can see there, okay, is DEE. Take the floor.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for a very good presentation. I've really enjoyed it. I just have two quick observations or two quick questions. The first one is the conclusion that we said direct taxes reduced inequality but increased poverty. So I was wondering whether, I know at some point in the graduated income scales that we have, an income below a certain amount of money was not taxed. So I don't know if KRA changed that at some point. And in your opinion then, do we then say people between maybe 0 to where the poverty rate stands or slightly higher than the poverty rate, should we say that we should not tax people at that point? Because when you talk about the direct tax, especially for the poor, is just going to be the income tax. So that's the first question. Whether or not it's possible to then say part of the policy that we might suggest going forward is to have the tax between 0 to 10,164, the way it used to be before, not to be taxed at all, because then that is going to reduce the poverty. And then the second observation was from the slide. I don't know if it's possible for us to go back to the slide that was answering the second question, the one that came just before the Lawrence curve. Yes, just before that, just before that, yes, thank you. So we said people in the first 6 deciles are net beneficiaries of transfer and social spending. And then we said those in the richer 5 deciles are net taxpayers. So I wanted to know whether the two are mutually exclusive so that someone can be both a net taxpayer and a beneficiary in terms of like the transfer and social spending. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dee, for such very good questions. Now, the next comment or question is going to come from Katunge Kiilu. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the presentation and even for the invite to be part of this team. I have learned so much. As you may or may not be aware, I'm coming from a communications perspective. So although I may be a bit lost when it comes to Gini and so on, I'm encouraged by what Professor said. And for me, I think the support I can lend to this initiative is really the communication support. This work needs to go out, especially the discussion on this paper. When we launched the report on the inequality trends and diagnostics, perhaps because of the time constraints, we didn't have much time to delve into this, but I wish to propose, if the team allows, we could have sort of even a breakfast meeting or something where we can delve into these issues as has just happened now in this forum and let Kenyans understand what work we are doing, and especially what Prof was saying about the linkages between the taxation and policies that he said he's been talking about world over. There's a lot I'm seeing that can come out to lend publicity to this work and make people now sit up and start listening and interrogating these issues from a non-political point of view. And I would be glad to assist in that. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Katunge, for your comments. Now, we have actually had 4 comments or questions from Professor Murray, from Professor Tuguna, and from Katunge, and from Dee. Most of them were actually comments also, but I invite any member of the team who can actually just comment or react, because apart from Dee, where we had 2 questions, most others have been just comments. So maybe I'm a member of the group or the team. Just for any reaction or any additions, because most of these are comments, just to enrich it and to overemphasize how the tool is very important and can actually be applied in other areas.
Yeah, so maybe Martin, I can start.
Yes, you can start.
Yeah, so I think thanks so much, Mule, for your depth emphasis and also more insight into what is good, into how this work has been done, and also in terms of how we are working in collaboration with other for example, other experts like Stephen Young, who has taken us through the training. Yeah, also the issue of that we have so many countries we have done this, so that we have a way of trying to compare our results and seeing whether we are more or less like towing the line of ensuring that the fiscal policies options that we have actually doing the expected work. Yeah. So for Professor Juguna Dongo, I think it's extremely well said that we really need to talk about data so that we can be more practical and be more pragmatic in terms of the results that we get, so that the result can actually inform the real time. So we really welcome that, and especially in terms of your direction, I'm happy that you are also able to direct that in some areas that we can get this kind of data, and also the fact that you are also ready to give us a kind of a support in terms of how we can get into more data, and also how we can discuss more results actually coming from the current and real-time kind of data. So we really we are in agreeable with that, with the observation, and also with your promised support. So we hope to take this with speed, so that we can use this kind of methodology to get real-time results. Yeah. So for D, yeah. So the question I got is can we have people benefiting and at the same time losing? Yeah, so I think what you are able to note there is the magnitude of the effect. So like depending on where you lie in the DISA, you're exclusive. You're mutually exclusive from the other DESA. But in terms of the effect, we'll be able to see that magnitude. Is it bigger among those who are considered poor than those who are considered rich? So to some extent, we would say that those are mutually exclusive, as from our data, from our data set and the way we did the computation. Yeah. So policy-wise, you talked about the direct taxes being more reducing poverty to some extent. Reducing inequality, mainly reducing inequality, and that is expected because we know that those people with more will be taxed, and then we expect that to some extent the bit of inequality will go down. But in terms of its effect on the poverty, that one is still, as we can see, is still not very clear. So Kiiru, thank you so much for your hand. Sorry that last time perhaps we didn't do much in terms of publicity, but we can really appreciate your effort. The much we publicized our inequality and our next paper. We can say that was at least met some bit of expectation. But as you're indicating, I think we need to do more in terms of publicizing this kind of work, so that, for example, the policymakers can borrow a leaf on how we can go forward. So we agree, and we hope, and we are very expecting in terms of doing more collaboration with you. Note that this is just a kind of a dissemination of some of the results. So we expect to do some launch, and we can do more in terms of publicity. And again, we'll come seeking for your indulgence when it comes to this Kiiru. Thank you so much. And maybe, I don't know, Martin, back to you.
Thank you very much, Moses, for the response. We'll take a few questions again, but before that, I think we can also check the charts.
Chair,
okay, sorry, okay.
Chair, I want to add on what Muridi has said.
Okay.
The issue of the data, if you look at the data, actually is for 2015-16 from KIBS, but we have new data. Since we have the COVID, we can use the 2020 and 2021 data, which we have collected. So we can produce the new CEQ when the data is ready, so that we can use and give the real-time information in terms of the results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul, for putting a lot other emphasis again. Now, I think there are other questions. Before we proceed, there are other questions again on the chat. From Camille. Camille says, congratulations for this strong work. I would like to know if it is possible to that this methodology that maybe to come up with the beneficiary age group and the loser age group of the public expenditures. So that is a comment and a question from Camille. Yeah, who says, is it possible to know through this methodology the beneficiary age group and the loser age group of the public expenditure? Then another comment from David Njuguna says, great and timely discussions at Moses and the team. The findings need to be shared soon as the country move on to the next MTP or the vision. So those are maybe together with this, because we'll have another set of questions together with this, and then the responses will be able to come later on. So let's have other set of questions or comments. Other set of comments or questions. Okay, as we are waiting for other set of questions, I don't know whether there is another response or reaction from the team, especially on Camille's, is asking whether it is possible to know through this methodology the beneficiary age group and the loser age group of public expenditures. And of course, for David, you are saying that this work needs to be shared. I think the same sentiments echoed by Katunge Kiilu. So do we have any reaction, or Moses, you want to come back again?
Yes, I want to come back again, Martin.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
So I would imagine, so this was, in terms of age groups and the age group, of course, I know, Campbell, we also have the NTA methodology, National Transfer Account methodology, that we of course, we use to determine this. But what I know is that, this is practically possible because it's just an issue of the focus where the focus is. So the issue of age, definitely we should be able to design that this one within our methodology so that this can come out very, very clearly. Yeah, so, and this, of course, with the help of commitment to equity. For example, we should be able to devise this age, because it's simply an age categorization, and then we have the household data which has got the age. The only challenge I would believe is that perhaps some of the data in terms of administrative data might not be in terms of age. But using some kind of NTA methodology, National Transfer Account methodology, we should be able to distribute this across ages, and then we input this one in our CQ methodology. So, Carmel, I would say this is possible. Thank you. So for the others are comment, I agree. Thank you so much. We should be able to talk from here how this work should be fast-tracked, especially for policy orientation. Thank you. Back to you, Martin. But before that, maybe I don't know whether Professor Mwambu, you have something on Carmel's. Professor Mwambu, if you are there, do you have something on Carmel's question, please?
Yeah, actually, Moses, thank you, Moses. Your answer is actually perfect. So I have nothing to add there. The only point I want to add is the comment made by Professor Ndongo about the role of human capital formation in equality in distribution. Actually, remarkably, I see as at least two independent projects on this issue, and what we show in our paper is that actually the tax revenue spent to accumulate human capital, health, human capital, and education, human capital, actually both reduce both inequality and poverty. So actually this result that we see from our analysis, that the combination of taxes and resource expenditure reduces inequality, but increases poverty, comes from the way that revenue the revenue is spent. Yeah, I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the additional comments.
Can I add something? Can I add something
Professor.
on the
Yes.
whether the methodology can help?
Yes, Prof, continue.
And I think the answer by Moses is quite good, but also looking at what we did, since we are using the household data, maybe it's a matter of subdividing the data after you merge it with the administrative data. And then probably one can do the study on the youth and maybe the other age category. So if you restrict the data set into a particular certain age, using the household after you merge with the administrative data, then it is actually possible. But it will require a lot of manipulation on the side of the software to bring in this kind of analysis. So it is possible with a little bit of more work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your comments. I don't know whether we have any other question or any other reaction or any comments or other inputs. We can take maybe another two if they are there. Okay. I'm looking at the program and it's like the question and answer session almost coming to an end, but do we have any other? Or any reaction or any comments? Okay. So if we don't have, yes.
Okay. Maybe.
Yes, Moses. Continue. Yeah.
No, okay. Yeah. So mine was to note Ratif, Professor Ratif for. Yeah, I know when we talk of a national transfer account, I think he can also be very good in this, in helping us come up with that. What we are calling the age structure, so that the possibility of doing it using the CQ methodology can also be married to our national transfer account methodology, so that in terms of disaggregating, for example, the education, maybe the taxes and all that, that one is something that we can also discuss with Professor Atif from Craig University. Professor Atif, welcome. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Moses. I think at this juncture, we are moving to the tail end of this program, and I'm going to invite Paul Samuel to give us some vote of thanks. Paul, I don't know whether you are there. Paul,
okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin, for giving me this opportunity. First, I would like to thank all of you for joining in to make this workshop happen. First, let me thank the government of Kenya for giving us the latitude for us to prepare this paper. I would like also to thank ACEIR and ARUA under the guidance of Professor Muri for giving us the guidelines and giving us a place where we can start a node in East Africa. I would like also to thank the AFD and the European Union for the financial support. I would like also to take this opportunity to thank Nairobi University and Kenya National Bureau of Statistics researchers for having taken their time to work through and make sure that we have this paper. I would also like to thank Steve Young of Cornell University for giving us supports in terms of capacity building for us to make this paper work. I would like also to thank Professor Njuguna Ndungu from ARC for having this time to join us in the presentation. I would like also to thank those people who have joined us from different parts of the world to make this presentation workshop successful. I would like also to give a lot of appreciation to our communication officer who has actually told us to communicate widely. And this is a wake-up call for us. So we hope we will be doing this. We need also to make sure that if you look at those people who attended, it's mainly those people who know what is CQ and those who can take these hard parts. So we need also to make sure we have communicated to the rest. So thank you everybody for being with us, and God bless you. Back to you, Mr. Oleche, Dr. Oleche.
Thank you very much, Paul, for such very nice vote of thanks. We are actually very grateful. And at this particular juncture, I don't know whether there is any comments. Again, I think we have already given the vote of thanks, unless there is anything that is burning. On my own, I would want to thank all the participants for getting time to join this program here. We are really very grateful, and we appreciate all of you for getting time to be here. Thank you very much. I think that we have come to the end of the program. Thank you, and be blessed.